welcome to the Sencerely podcast with Mr. Sensi and friends.
All right. Welcome to the Sincerely Yours podcast, where we have the real, unfiltered conversations that need to be had. Today's episode is titled Nobody Wins When the Family Feuds. And we're doing a deep dive into internal and external challenges that have divided the Black community for generations. If we truly want to move forward, and we have to address the issues within our house first. But before we get into the episode, I got to give a shout out to my sponsors. Cool Beans Cafe in Petersburg, Virginia. Come get your mojo and be cool. All right, so there's a lot of talk about the Black community, a lot of internal challenges that we face. We can't deny it. But before we talk about fixing the problems, we need to understand how it started. The Black community just didn't wake up one day divided. It was engineered, it was manufactured, it was intentional. From slavery to segregation to modern day systematic traps, there's always been a deliberate effort to keep us from uniting. So today, let's talk about it. So I have a panel of brothers today. I'll let each of you introduce yourself. Starting to my left.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Davis.
My name is Joseph Harris.
My name is William Jones.
All right, great. As a collective, what we're going to do, we're going to go through 4 segments today. The first segment is the historical divide. How did we get here, right? The second will be internal struggles. Are we our own worst enemy? The third segment is external forces. So what's really holding us back? And then fourth, because this is a podcast for solutions, we're going to talk about the solutions and how do we rebuild. So we have to go back, right? We have to go back or when it started initially, right? So the first thing that comes to mind is slavery and the division. Back in the day, the slave masters deployed a very strategic strategy. We all are familiar with it. It's called divide and conquer. Tactics used on the plantations, putting enslaved Black people at odds with one another, from field versus house, to light skin versus dark skin, to big versus small. Let me ask a question. Do we think slavery still exists today?
I think it exists in a different form. I think the most ultimate form of slavery is when you have been led to believe that you're not enslaving yourself, but evidence suggests otherwise. When no one has any chains on your wrists or your feet, but the chains are on your mind, your mentality, and affects every decision you make. So I think slavery is still a situation that is so deeply embedded, it manifests in different ways now, where the master don't have to oppress anymore. The oppressed are oppressing the oppressed.
Anyone want to expand or add to that?
Now, I agree with Joe. Slavery is our own mindset right now. As you stated, we enslave ourselves by continuing to act like there's a master. And there's not really a master. You change your mindset, you can change everything.
I think it's down to our DNA, to be honest. I think it gets that deep. You know, the generational curses, the things that are just passed down, the mothers protecting their children, their sons doing slavery, that kind of mental thing that it just embeds in us, burnt, it's seared into our DNA. We just have to now recognize it and work through it. We are our own worst enemy.
Absolutely, very good points by each of you. But hold on a little bit about that because we're going to dive deeper into that in the second segment. So what I like to do is let's go through a timeline, right? So when we talk about the historical divide, I'm thinking slavery, right? We just talked about that. Let's talk about the next hurdle that we had to overcome as a people. And we're still facing that challenge today. Let's talk about economic sabotage. When I think about that, because there's this notion that, our people, we're lazy, we're dependent upon the government, we don't go out, we don't seek, we don't have ambition. But let's talk about a few communities back in the early 20th century. Let's start in Virginia first, right? 2 that comes to mind. the Jackson Ward historical area, right? Norfolk. People don't talk about Norfolk, but Norfolk was a gold mine for black people in the early 20th century. We all know about Black Wall Street. We know about Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's many more areas or towns or cities that black people thrive, but them being so ignorant and being so revengeful, they sabotage, they burn down, they displace. Personally, I don't think segregation or desegregation has ever worked for our community.
No.
What are your thoughts on that?
Once you look at it, I'm sorry. At my age now, at 56, I remember black people, my grandparents said Negroes in color. When Nipsey Russell came on television, or Flip Wilson, they actually stood and clapped when the black person showed up on television. So it was cohesion that that's one of us. He made it. Let's celebrate that. As a 30-year career educator, when I teach about Black Wall Street, at one point, black meant something. At one point, you didn't do certain things just because it was your dedication to a certain image that we're not what you say we are. Where today, we embrace our ratchetness. Other cultures, if you're an outsider, you're out there doing something crazy, you half naked twerking on the wedding and beating up Waffle House workers and stuff, we embrace that. At one point, we rejected that. Well, now when you become acquainted with the absurd, that becomes our, and now black culture identify with that.
It's funny that you mentioned. I'm definitely gonna let the other panel members weigh in on that. I saw something recently on social media, and it was this sister, black lady. She was on there and saying that it's time for us to disown the people in our community to make us look bad.
True indeed.
Because other communities do that. And she went through and talked about how the Asians disown you, disavow, discommunicate you, kick you out. For black people, to your point, we kind of embrace it and double down and welcome it and wear it like a badge of honor. And it's nothing to be proud about, right? Because when you think about the ultimate sacrifices that our ancestors made, if there's a true thing, you know, we've all heard this growing up in our community. They're rolling around in their graves, embarrassed at how we behave and how we carry ourselves. So go ahead, Mike.
No, I just want to piggyback off Joe again. When you talk about the Norfolk and the Tulsa, when you look at the photographs, we was dressed very elegant. We were proud to say we made it. We held a standard to ourselves. We made sure the standard was excellent. And over time, it has become, like you said, ratchet, acceptable. And when you do have a standard about yourself, you look down on it. Like, why you a sellout? Why you gotta be your own Catan? So the things that are good for us, look down upon. And the things that are bad, man, you a true dude. You 10 toes down.
It's funny that you mentioned that, right? Another misconception that in our community, the usage of Uncle Tom has been being used incorrectly. When you see someone kissing ass or whatever you want to say they do, they're not an Uncle Tom, they're actually Sambo. Uncle Tom. So that's a historical little gem for people. We've been using it wrong for all these years. It's not an Uncle Tom. Clarence Thomas is Sambo, not an Uncle Tom. So I'm sorry. Anybody else on the panel want to add to that?
But once again, when you don't know the meaning behind Uncle Tom, because we don't like to do this ugly thing called reading.
There you go.
I've been teaching for 30 years, and when you say these ugly statistics, every summer they put the reading scores on a big board. All the teachers from the district get in the room, and every year, black kids at the bottom, black boys, Latino boys, black girls, and whites and Asians. And when you say, well, that's stereotype, I see children every day, and you put down something in front of them, and it's like, My wife teaches second grade, and you see kids who really do not know what their name is. Say the ABC, they sing the songs, start at G, start at F.
Lost.
So when you say starting at the home, they're lost. And when you bring your kid to kindergarten, what's your name? Tata, your mama's name, Baba. If they don't know the basic fundamentals of being a human being, so they don't even know how you can't bless someone. You give somebody in Haiti a laptop, they're gonna plug into a rock. We don't have the basic infrastructure of learning and knowledge and understanding to be helped right now. So my opinion, at 56, this generation coming up, the answers to their problems is in them. I can't imagine what the solution is. They don't respond to Afrocentricity. They don't respond to discipline. They don't respond to work ethic. And their parents don't make them.
And they think what we're talking about, of course, the history. A lot of them think that's 300-400 years ago.
Right.
That is just right around the corner. So
Right. They
their
don't see the
history,
value.
they think of that like, oh, that's so long ago. No, that's not. That's right around the corner. It
Just happened.
just happened.
Yeah.
But they're so detached from it that they think, oh, y'all just making this up. No, this happened. You know? They have to understand that this type of history is right around.
Yeah.
You got to, and they have to change it. They can't wait
Absolutely.
for anybody else to change it. They have to change their mindset, their thinking. They have to understand the history and the sacrifice that their ancestors went through from the Montgomery boycott.
Yeah.
You have to understand that that wasn't just a 30-day window. That was 381 days. They were committed
Non-stop.
They were committed to walk to work, walk to church, walk to the grocery store, pick up each other, help each other. You know, that was a commitment. Now, we'll march for 2 days and think, oh, that's going to change.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
not going to change anything.
Yeah, but
A boycott Target for 1 day.
and
That's
can't
not
even,
going to change nothing.
and can't even stay unified for that, right? Because I've seen so many brothers coming out of Target.
Well, I mean, look at it like this too. You know, they told their, you know, as I say, his story. You know, what they're being taught is a history that kind of just blocks them out. So they're not interested. So when you introduce Black history to them, you know, they look at it the same way they look at white history.
Well,
you know?
I mean, that's the history they're being taught. Everything is whitewashed
Correct.
at this point, right?
Exactly. And
you're
they're
right.
not interested. They're not interested. So when you introduce, and they, you know, you get 28 days to shove Black history on them.
And that's strategic.
Exactly.
That's strategic. That's very strategic. Give us the shortest month when we've actually made the most contributions to this country. To your point, you know, just February was Black History Month, and we did some specials on the podcast, and we introduced every week African American or Black Americans' contributions to America. But then on the last installment of the series was called Remember Who You Are. And we took it back even further. We took it back to the motherland. We talked about the Kush dynasty. We talked about Mansa Musa. We talked about Cheddar Man. And most of the kids and most of you know, our peers that I sent it to, they was like, who the hell is this? They never taught us that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that's sad, because what that confirms is that we've indoctrinated or been indoctrinated with this philosophy that we're less than, right? And living in a microwave society as we do, to your point, if you said, let's get together and protest something for 32 days, it would lose their mind, right? Because everything is instantaneous. I'll go out there 8 hours and I expect or demand change. And that's not how the real world works at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
And going back to your point with the Black History Month, we have to get the young adults to understand Black History Month is only 28 days. But you as a African American Black person, you are Black History. And that's 365.
For sure.
Stop condensing your history to 28 days. And what is Black history to you as a young adult? It means actually you have to change your neighborhood, your community by being Black history, but being Black history of an excellent standard.
But I think, again, in society, and it starts from school, right, from grade school, we're taught to minimize ourselves or shrink ourselves. And that kind of follows along with us, even when we go through corporate America in our respective careers. How many times have each of us may have worked for somebody that we were 8 times smarter than them? But we have to dumb it down so they won't feel insecure or they won't feel intimidated. So that's just an ongoing situation that's continually perpetuated throughout. But it starts early, right? And look, that's going to be another show that we're going to do.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is, all right, so we talked about slavery and division. We talked about economic sabotage. And I want to kind of stay on this timeline that goes over the last 400 years. Obviously, we're going to abbreviate it because we don't have that much time, right? But the next topic that I want to address is let's talk about the civil rights movement and the differences in philosophies. So there's always a conversation to be had where did you follow Malcolm? Did you follow MLK? Did you follow Booker T. Washington versus W.E. Du Bois? Different philosophies, but same goals. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think that's made an impact? And still, I still think it's a conflict or a battle internal to the Black community because even though those different philosophy has the same goals or desired outcomes, how we go about it is very different. We have very militant people, and then we have very, Martin Luther King, nonviolence, speaking with words.
Right.
What's the balance, and what are each of your perspectives on that?
Well, I think when you had those brothers that you mentioned, the WBs, the Malcolm X's, at least they followed something.
Okay.
At least they adopted a path and accepted a discipline and rules to be a part of that movement. Let's take the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He disagrees with certain things. He says, okay, I understand that. Bottom line, he says, monitor what you bring into your soul, your food, your nourishment, your mind.
Yep.
You have to, as a person, monitor yourself and have a higher goal to achieve. It's not just about having your Gucci belt, your Jordan tennis shoes, this, because I teach students, you got a 17th grade average, but brand new Jordans on.
Right.
You dumb as dirt.
What are you getting rewarded for?
Exactly. And then now they'll make us pass you,
Right.
But those guys, I think when you say all they let us hear about Dr. King is I have a dream, he was nonviolent. Oh, he was, but at some point before he died, he was like, you know what, I think I let us into a house that's burned down.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was saying, bottom line is, like, when I say, well, they give us Black History Month, my point is, Jews don't say they give us anything. It's up to us. I taught my sons, don't expect equality from the man that sold your great-grandfather. Don't expect it. Let's get to Black 31 days. Who gives a damn what they give you? If they give you, they can take it away from you.
Take it away from, there you go.
So with those brothers back then, about the common denominator was, if you are excellent in yourself, you're the best surgeon out there. They can't deny you.
Right.
Or if they do, start your own hospital. That's when you mentioned the Black Wall Street. I tell my students, do you understand what it takes to be a cardiosurgeon? That level of discipline and structure and order and dedication is something you nurture from the grave to the grave. But you give little Kiki a brand new pair of tennis shoes every time she make an F, talking back to you, you made a decision. And our people, to me, when it comes to decisions, excellence is deliberate. And at some point, so too is ignorance.
Yes.
8 kids by 8 different dudes, you ain't pressed no charges yet. You made a decision. He got 8 kids by 8 women, he made a decision. And we highlight that, put that on television, put it on social media, and make that. I don't know, wonder why. Nobody respects the clown. And all those brothers you mentioned made it a point to say, if you're a clown, don't get pissed off when somebody clowns you.
And when you mentioned those excellent men, they all had one foundational standard. They made a point to be educated.
Yes.
They made a point to read. They made a point to educate themselves and educate others. To bring others, when you talk about Booker T. Washington, he walked 500 miles to get to Hampton Institution, it was called back then. Clean the walls to get accepted in the school, then turn around and became a professor, then turn around and open up Tuskegee. He was determined to educate more brothers and sisters. Where I'm going with that is he wasn't selfish.
Yeah.
He was like, the only way we're going to get somewhere is to get education. And to go back to Brother Joe here, and my wife and I tell our kids, what's your grades? We ask, oh, I got a C, our youngest daughter. No. What's the number? Because what they did is they changed the numbers to make it feel good.
Speak on that.
And that's to hurt our community.
Yep.
Because what they say is, oh, I got a C, but a C now is like a 70.
A 70 is
A 70 and a 66 is a D. So they
That's
changed.
an F. That's an F when we
Right.
were.
Your last B was a 70.
Right.
69 was an F.
Yeah.
So they changed all the numbers. Now the kids, all they see is the letter. But if you got a 60-something and it's a C or whatever it is now, that's killing our community. Because what they're doing is putting these kids on the street that can't read, can't write, graduating to make room for the next batch.
Yeah.
Prison practice. That's school. Prison practice.
Right. But they're killing our, that kills our community.
Speaking of which, the next topic that we need to cover before we go into the next segment, and again, I'm trying to stay on timeline, major events in our community.
Good subject, good subject.
Let's talk about mass incarceration and the war on drugs, right? Many of us, all of us, if not directly or indirectly, was impacted by the uprise of crack and cocaine in the 1980s, 1990s. And we saw firsthand the destruction, the devastation to the communities, in the Black families, the Black neighborhoods. Let's talk about that. Have we really recovered from that? And before your answers are two-part, have we really recovered from that? And don't you think it's very ironic now when you think about the choice of drugs and the people who's been impacted looked more like them, and they're not putting them in jail now, they're putting them in rehab. Just think about that for a second. Clearly that was intentional, right? Because a drug is a drug, right?
Right.
But now, it's an epidemic. It's a national medical crisis
When it's in their community.
when it's in their community.
Right.
So I just think, well, I know what it really is, right?
Right.
But when you want to have these open conversations and these raw and uncut, you have to speak on it all. So what are your thoughts about that?
I'll say this: the show Snowfall. It was hard for me to watch that because I grew up around that. To watch how that came to be, it was government. They brought it in. They pumped it into our communities. So they told the truth. We took it as entertainment. What they was telling us was exactly how they did it, the way they did it, where they got it from. They broke it down for us. And they put it in our face, and they go, look, this is what we did to you. But you looking at this as entertainment. It was hard. It was hard to watch that show. Because I watched friends go through that.
True indeed.
I watched family go through that. It hurt. It was a hurtful show. Understanding, but now I don't watch anything for entertainment anymore. I see the message behind it.
Right.
So
One thing throughout history, I've always said this, you can't find any example in history where the oppressor reached down and raised the oppressed up to be his equal.
Right.
That's never happened. It's always going to always be that way. But when I say the war on drugs, and I call public school where I teach is prison practice. Because once again, when I got students in my class, look, man, I got a TikTok, my uncle in prison. I know you didn't. No, he cashed out me $20. When I found out you can send people in prison, Cash App, you can send them Chick-fil-A, send them jeans and tennis shoes. She ain't clad. The boy, he posed and got his Jordans on. Fred, he locked up for killing somebody. I think, who is that? That's my uncle. He locked up right now. And I asked myself, why would you make prison so not difficult anymore? Why would you do that? To make you think, that's just because a lot of brothers I teach, prison is the next stage in their development.
Right.
So that the girls, I said, what do y'all call a dude been in prison? That's just my nigga. I said, okay, because the nigga.
You already said it.
All the girls are bitches, the dudes are niggas. And this whole prison culture now, my school, everybody got the sag and they got the little shiesty on. And they practice being incarcerated, sitting in small spaces, doing absolutely nothing. And that's what's natural to them. And it's so heartbreaking when you talk about other alternatives. They never even, I said, why would you steal a car? How's they gonna drive a Benz? I said, well, he really thinks that's the only driver to do that. But back to the point, my thing is, when you make prison so desirable, and our kids are falling for it, we fall for things so easily because the ignorance in our community is so profound. And it trickles down, and prison is no longer a bad thing anymore.
Right.
You know, as you've never seen the worst kid in the black community never struggled for getting a girlfriend. The dude that works, pull his pants up, he can get no girlfriend.
And he's
the worst
corny.
one in there, got girls out around. Yeah, he corny.
Yeah.
But to piggyback on both of you, the Snowfall, I don't watch shows like that because what it shows, it tries to indicate that's how we are and still are. And sometimes I hate, our shows are always about sex, drugs, and murder.
Right.
You hardly ever see the positive shows. They are out there, but you hardly ever see it. It's always.
Well, you don't want to watch them. Let's be honest.
Well, they don't want to watch it.
Because they don't want to watch it. They'd rather watch the Snowfalls, the Powers,
Real
the
Housewives.
Shoot 'em Up, the Real Housewives.
But because, go back to what you said, the ignorance of the young people, they don't need to see that.
Yeah.
Because that only helps them chase that.
But you have to look at it from a different perspective, right? I'm going to be drawn to what I'm familiar with.
Right.
Right?
True,
So
true.
for a lot of kids, especially growing up in certain neighborhoods, you're not used to being in an environment where it's a two-parent home. You're not used to being in an environment where your lawns are very manicured and you have an irrigation system. Hell, most kids don't even know what a pantry is.
No.
Look, I was one. I grew up. I didn't know what no damn pantry was. What are you talking about?
You
You know what I mean? Yeah, fucking, yeah. So what I'm saying is you are a product of your environment, right? But you don't have to stay that way. You don't have to let that define you. But what I'm saying is they resonate more to things that they're familiar with. So those shows, they can come out of their house and look down the street each way, and they see that, right? So that's why they're more so, drawn to that, and because they can relate to it.
But I also see on the flip side, I agree with you, but on the flip side, in today's time, there's nothing you can't research to see. If you
See, but you said it. Research.
Right.
They ain't researching.
well, no, I'm talking about on their phone. All of them got a phone.
They ain't researching that.
But you just hit my point. They're quick to research something negative instead of reaching for something different. I'm not saying you got to know it, but reach for something different. That phone you can tell them anything and they'll research that. But stop researching the negative. Research something different. Just look for something different. And if you look for something different, you're bound to find something better.
Absolutely.
But if you keep looking for the same thing, that's all you're going to find.
So let's leave it on that. That's a positive point. So when you speak of the foundation, or when you break the foundation, the house crumbles, right? We all agree. And that's exactly what's happened. But the question is, are we still allowing these systems to keep us divided?
A cuss word in our community is family.
Oh, yeah.
I ask students, you can't name one race on the planet that tells their men, I don't need you, nigga. I got my own, I'm this and this. You tell the men, I don't need you. So boys now don't even want to be a man. They don't even like, they hate women, but they act like them. When I was a principal, I got black women cussing me out so much for correcting their sons. So I asked the girl, I said, so what's wrong with having a mother, a father? I ain't gonna submit to nobody. If you get a full scholarship to UNC, running track, right? Right. The coach, we run 2 miles at 5:30 a.m. every morning. If that's a problem, don't come to UNC run track. You know that. You're not submitting like do whatever this man tells you, but understand, once you decide to have it's different having a baby and having a family.
Yes.
Forget your name, your organization, your fraternity, baby, let's just make a decision. And we don't like making decisions that take us away from our fun, our friends, our weave, our eyelashes, our Jordans. We want to still, when you see guys in their 40s act like they're 17, they don't know how to be a man. And so now when you take away the man completely, you have total feminine energy. And our kids now are so far, everybody stays in their feelings. Oh, I feel it. If I feel it's got to be true, and I feel, everyone must adjust to me.
So let's continue the conversation then. You talk about family breakdowns, right? You talked about absent fathers, right? Or the absence of a man being in the house, right? Whether it's the father, whether it's the grandfather or uncle. Most of these young kids these days don't even have any of that, right? And they're just trying to figure it out. They're around a lot of female energy, right? But let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's go into it and talk about the toxic relationships in the broken homes, the households. How do we get to those points, or how did we get to those points with the toxic relationships in the broken homes?
Goes back to what Joe said. When you growing up and you keep saying, I don't need a man. A lot of times what you're saying is you don't need structure. They don't the structure, the disciplines what they don't want. Because when you have a family, you have a man in the house and structure, there's certain dynamics.
For sure.
And when you say you don't need a man, you're not only, excuse me, for yourself, you're teaching your kids that. If you have daughters, you're teaching your daughters that. If you have sons, you're teaching them the opposite. They're going to bounce from woman to woman, killing generation after generation.
Could be a Jody.
Right, having babies everywhere. Because she said, I don't need a man.
Yeah.
Right.
So he like, if you don't need a man, you just gonna have this baby and I'm gonna roll.
Let's go half.
Well, that's the problem, right? To your point. One of the things that I found very interesting with a lot of single women these days, and obviously I'm married, I'm a happy married man, and I'm not out there, right? But one of the things that I always notice from young women, first thing they want to come up and ask a guy, what you bring to the table? What you bring to the table? But see, the problem is they don't understand, like, men, what is a table, right? We're the house in which the table resides in. So it's a difference. And I think women, true women, right? They understand that concept. Because you should never come up to a man and ask him, what do you bring to the table? I think that's one of the most insulting things you could do.
Correct.
I think you come and ask him what you want, a 6-figure guy, 6'6" back, to take you to places that you won't even go yourself.
But then that's another conversation. Then you can't ask for something you don't qualify, you don't bring to the table yourself.
Exactly.
That same table, right?
Exactly.
And that's what they want. But there's certain things that come with that 6-figure.
Right.
But they're not willing to give.
Exactly.
They're not willing to do. They think they can just sit around and spend the money and shop and do whatever. And he come home, she ain't go to the grocery store. Her nails are done.
Oh, they gotta keep that done.
Nothing cooked.
No
Her
homework.
feet are done.
Yeah.
So let's kind of pull it back, because these conversations that we're gonna have that on the next episode.
Let's go.
Right? It's a war going on, and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna break that down.
Good word.
So let's talk about some of the biggest issues today that the Black community faces, internal issues. So what I'm thinking, what immediately comes to mind, and I know this is a very sensitive topic. A lot of people don't want to have this conversation. But let's talk about the Black-on-Black crime versus systemic crime. Let's talk about it. We need to address the crime in our own neighborhoods, right, in our own communities, without letting the media weaponize it against us, because that's what the media has done, right? When you think about that. They go in, we see it every day. Every day. They find the most negative stories to cover and project out to the world. And you got to understand, and I'm not making excuses for anyone outside of our culture, but it's a lot of people that don't have access to Black people in person, in real life, right? There's a lot of communities, a lot of rural communities that myself being prior military, when I went into the military, I've had these conversations with some people, and it was like, you guys are like the first Black people we actually talked to or seen, right? And that's prevalent. That's a real thing. So if your experience is only what you see off TV, the movies, the music, the local news, think about how their first interaction with us is going to be. But let's talk about the Black-on-Black crime and the systemic crime and the role that we play. Because in order for us to really even position ourselves to try to address them, we need to address ourselves. Who want to take that one?
I'll say this. Black crime is, the same thing happens in the white community. But we will rob from each other knowing the circumstances of the person we rob from. That's the sum. If I go buy a new TV and I take it into my house and you see that, you see me leave, you break into my house and take my TV, and you know that I've saved my money and I've done this to get that kind of mentality is what we have.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about in segment 1, right? From the slave masters pitting house versus field, light versus dark, small versus big. It's self-hate.
Yeah.
And it's resonated, like it's in our DNA.
It's deep.
You know, one thing I always say, like, look, there's a lot of systemic and systematic traps for us. I don't think anyone's going to refute that. But a lot of times we do it to ourselves. Like, they've indoctrinated us. It's ingrained in our mind to hate ourselves and hate everything that looks like us. To your point, why are you going to rob and want to kill me and break into my house for something I've worked?
You saw me work.
You saw me work.
You
see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's to your point, when you say something is so deeply embedded in your DNA, our people are in need of a overall visceral paradigm shift. What I mean by that is this. We need to stop dealing with treatment and deal with growth. Certain things you should just outgrow.
Yeah.
If you whip my behind 400 years, with Kanye West, that sounded like a choice. I hated him for saying that too.
Yeah.
And I thought for a minute. I saw one time when I was a kid. This man smacked his woman. Blah. Smacked her twice. Blah. Her uncle stepped to the guy, grabbed him up. She cussed out her uncle. Mind your so-and-so's business. They was like, what you're saying is you want to be beat. You need to be beat up. Right. She made a decision. And to deal with what we're dealing with, it takes like we're having here. Hurtful conversations aren't fun. But to deal with these generational curses, you got to have a level of truth to yourself. You know what? I'm really effed up inside. You really are. Right. To extract those type of truths takes a certain degree of tact. And we don't have kids going into the high science. All our kids want to be, entrepreneur, what you going to do? I make beats. Get on the table and rap. Okay, we can do that. Any black man, that's stereotypical, we can all make beats and rap, okay? We need to go into high science and really study some of this stuff and take our discussion away from what they did, so on and so on. So what are you doing to help yourself in your house break these shackles?
Right.
And those conversations can be fun.
You use a powerful but dangerous word in our community, which I think is one of the most dangerous things in our community, the truth.
The truth.
We don't want to hear the truth.
The truth.
We want to get it soft. We want to make excuses, but we don't want the truth. Because the truth will hurt. It's going to have you look at yourself. But we don't want no truth.
That mirror don't lie to you.
We don't want no truth.
That's a hard walk.
The black on black crime. That's terrible because robbing, taking the TV, stealing the TV is one thing. But making the excuse that it's all right is it's the bad part. Oh, it's cool, man. They got it. What? I go to work. They got it. They're going to be all right. Well, hold on. You justifying robbing from your neighbor. People you know then got the nerve to say, I don't know what happened.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
I don't snitch.
I'm looking at the TV in your window. I
Right.
don't know what happened. I don't snitch. But speaking of snitching, we say don't snitch. But it happens to you. Somebody knows something. But you just told me last week, don't snitch.
No, it's no rules in the game anymore.
No,
And
no
they
rules
say-
anymore.
And they say 10 toes down. Wife and I was talking about that one day.
10 toes.
10 toes down, don't snitch. I wouldn't do nothing to snitch. But yet, you join things. Say 10 toes down. But go back to your track. I ain't going to where nobody will tell me what to do. But you're joining a gang where they won't tell you what to do and there's
Exactly
severe
what
you do.
consequences.
And
if
no
you don't
benefits.
do
With no benefits.
no benefits, but I'm not going to do anything where somebody tells me to do to better myself. But I'm going to join a gang where they're going to tell me what to do. And if you don't do it, I'm going to put the green light on.
What do we say for this segment? A lot of these, especially young brothers, if you get 2 or 3 of them together, I show my students doctors or something, they don't pay attention to it. One, that's I'm going to try something. I put on, what's the sister? Iana. And she had kids talking about their fathers. I was in Durham, North Carolina, Hillside High School. I mean, ghetto to the bone. These kids was, I put that on, they got bone silent, and those kids for the next hour and a half, all they talked about is how they hurt us. I'm like, they want it so bad, but once, let me ask you, like, why you hate your father? He lied, he ain't this, so. I just sound like somebody I know, don't it? Am I like him? Do you lie? Yeah. Are you violent? Yeah. Are you dependable? No. How do you become somebody you hate? You think I'm like that? You doing all the talking. They want to be healed so bad because this generation now, a lot of their parents act like they're friends. So the maturity level is the same.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
But back to something you wanted to say. One thing that I tell the young boys that I mentor, you know, as far as staying 10 toes down and not snitching, I tell them straight up, that's a myth, right? Snitching comes along with crime. When the first crime was committed, somebody snitched.
You got 40 years coming. All right.
Because we know better, right? The cops ain't that fucking good at their jobs.
Right.
Somebody's telling. Somebody's telling.
True indeed.
So let's be honest.
But I'm going to go with my man Bernie Mac. I'm not gonna snitch, but I'm gonna tell.
I'm gonna tell you.
I'm,
It's a difference.
I'm not
It's a
gonna-
difference.
I'm not gonna do your time.
No.
Hey, like he said, it's not a snitch. That's a new fool.
New fool.
I ain't gonna do nobody else's time.
He did it.
He did it right there.
All right, look, so I think we're all in agreement, right? We got a lot of work to do. We just can't talk about the problem. We have to be about the solution. So let's shift the conversation. Let's talk about the external forces, right? It's not just us. Sure, we're still dealing with real systemic oppression that makes our internal battles even harder, right? But let's not get it twisted. Just because we made progress doesn't mean that we've arrived. So, in the last segment, and I love the way the conversation is going because we're kind of prepping for the next segment, you know, by the response and the conversations that we have. So we talked about media representation, how we are portrayed in movies, music, and news, and how it shapes the perceptions. Anybody want to give an example of that?
Sexy red. When you got little girls 5 and 6 years old, turn their behind up and start twerking, and grown women, yeah, baby, so, and look at you like you the one that's crazy for doing that. And watching high school guys walk around, you too dumb to die. You can't go to the service, get a gun, and go to the front. You 17 years old, we're on a 12-year-old level, and you're the one that's considered cool or desirable. You know, so it's like an upside down and backwards type of existence. And I think the music industry is built. Our destruction has a soundtrack to it.
Oh, wow.
Our destruction, all the songs, they pass, what's the list, what's his name? And they play the songs now, the color of my so-and-so, you gonna do something, do this nigga so-and-so. Like, she just described the pornographic scene. Y'all bob your head to it. So they expect a dude to be that way.
Right.
You know, and so what they think being black is ratchet, dumb, ignorant, loud, violent. And the whole generation is following that, and the 20s and 30s something endorse that.
Yeah.
Everywhere you see how you 35, all of them twerking at the butt up in the air, so who want to wife you up after you do that? But some think that's not what I'm supposed to do. What black women do. And once it's endorsed,
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, go, brother.
No, I'm just gonna say the words we use, it makes me laugh because when our youngest daughter come home, she tells a story, hey, white dude, we just said nigga. And they look at me like, you will let him say that?
Only if you let the word have power.
We want to, even the B word, we want to say, the men want to call girls B's on their record, but don't want you to call their daughter B. But bro, you just call every other man daughter B on that song. If the word is that bad, stop using it.
Yeah.
Same with nigga. If it's that bad, stop putting it in your music. But that white dude bought that LP or that stream.
He's
How you
singing
gonna
it.
tell him-
So you say he pays $19.95? He can say every damn word on that song.
Every single one.
He paid for it.
If
Look,
you
it's
don't like
contract.
it and you don't want him to say it, you stop saying it.
Hey, look, it's probably in that contract. Hey, you need to say the N word 40 times in this
Right.
song.
You better smack
need
it
to
in the
say
song.
B,
But hold
you
on.
know.
You think that? You think it's in the contract? I don't think so. I just think they're
I
just that
think
fucking ignorant.
that is what they promote. And I think yes,
Yes,
they are instructed that has to be in there. I won't say has to. It'll be implied.
Well, I think the
It'll
artist.
be
I
implied.
think the artist
I think we
feels
should
like
change this.
they can't do a record if it doesn't have any curse words.
Right.
But it won't get
They
produced.
said it.
They won't play.
Right. They won't play it.
Our sisters are the most beautiful women in the world, but when they are led to believe, I gotta have a great big old orange wig and these lashes so-and-so, and I gotta be ratchet, loud, so-and-so. And when you come to us, let's do this. Next time you watch television, I'm a Martian from Venus. I come down and park my ship, get out, and come on the television, cut the volume off. What would I think about black people? You'd be like, wow. But my thing is, once again, when you see something ratchet, and to them, that's how we are.
Yeah.
We niggas,
It's
that's what
perception,
big
yeah.
bitches act like that.
Yeah.
And so when you really consider yourself truly as a bad bitch from the hood, and you fight and screw and have babies, get abortion, whatever you want to, and they talk, man, some of the stuff to you, I'm 56 and dark skin. I turn red to some of these stuff these girls say in class.
But you're in the right lane.
And they believe that.
The girls are sometimes worse than the boys with
Oh,
their
no question
language
about it.
of
No,
themselves.
the girls are worse. Anytime they come up
Most
to
of the fights we get
come up
against
to
girls.
come up to a man and tell him suck their penis. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
What are we doing here?
I'm like,
What
I'm
you
like,
say? You got one of those?
yeah.
Right.
I can look. I'm like,
They think
well,
they
that's a
do.
female, right?
They think they do.
Yeah, right.
But men hit harder than women. They find that out.
It hit hard.
Right.
It hit hard. You know?
That brings them back to reality, level set things.
Never said it, yeah.
But see, that's just it. When they step to a man like that, and then when the man treats them like they're another man,
Right.
then it's a problem.
Yeah, now you don't like it.
That's a
Disrespect
problem.
them.
You know, our two-piece and their two-piece is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we give you a biscuit.
Yeah.
We give you extra with it. They, you know.
But wherever I was going with that also is when it comes to the young ladies, back when we was growing up, she knew she couldn't bring you home. Whether it was mom and dad in the house or
Right.
just mom.
Right.
Yeah.
She couldn't bring a no good, raggedy, no good
better
somebody at the house.
Right.
Why? They wouldn't allow it. And you knew. Now, they bring anybody in the house.
Anybody.
Oh,
He walk in there, smell like weed,
yeah,
sitting
pants
chairs,
hanging off his tail. And you like, come on, where's, and he goes back to the parent. 2 home or 1 home. The parent. You're allowing this instead of saying, girl, don't bring that rag. He can't come in here.
Don't bring him here.
Don't bring that raggedy move over in here.
Well, it's the lack of that, right? Because if you had that structure, you wouldn't dare bring.
You wouldn't in the
You
first
wouldn't
place.
bring a
You
man
wouldn't
or a
think
woman
about it.
home to embarrass you in front
When
of
you,
your
when you,
parents.
you deal with young people, it's obvious when you meet a young person that has a man or father at home.
Yeah.
It's obvious. Girls or guys.
Yeah.
And some of you always, you can say, like somebody's uncles. I said, look something. If you show me all the goodies, why shouldn't I? I said, don't judge me by his cover. I'll tell you what. If the book says Spanish, I bet there's no recipe for meatloaf in there. If the book says transmission repair, I bet you can't find how to make coleslaw in it.
Right.
They put a title on it because it tells you what's in there.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? You tell you know, okay, well, let's see how hoes dress. 4 of them are hoes, you dress like them, but you say you're not one. Why wouldn't I think you're that way?
Absolutely.
You know?
But you made a good point with it. The old saying says what? Don't tell me who you are. Let me see who you with.
Let me see, yeah.
Oh, you can tell me everything about you.
Yeah. What you say speaks so loud. I don't hear, what you do speak loud. I can hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let's transition to political exploitation, right? And regardless of what the panel's political affiliations are, right? I look at both parties of taking advantage of the Black community, right? And I think Democrats think by default, right, that Blacks are going to vote for them, right? They don't have to really do anything. They don't really have to have a strategy or a plan for our community just because, you know what I mean? And I think the Republicans, they really avoided trying to cater a message to Black people, to the Black community. But, and I'm not playing devil's advocate, I just want y'all perspective on this. Remove the characters, right, of the show front runners, right, who we see, right? And focus on the values, right, of what each party say they're about, right? Forget about the messenger. Again, don't worry about who's delivering the message. Focus on what they say their beliefs are. And then tell me which one aligns more to the Black community and what we were raised on.
I always say.
Which one? Think about it.
I say the only difference between the two parties is the colors that they wear.
Okay, that's one way to look at it.
Because think about it. I mean, our current situation, the way things are going, it's some Democrats that agree with the road that we're traveling. They may not be vocal about it, but their vote goes that way.
So you're saying it don't matter what road or what the destination, what type of car it is, if the same, they both going the same destination.
I think that the Democrats have taken advantage. They got our vote, and they didn't worry about it, and they depended on it. This year, they got tricked up.
They lost some of it.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be a hard road for them to get it back. To be honest.
So let's just talk about, and hold your thought for a second, because I want to narrow it down, because I know that was a very open question or statement. Let's talk about how the black community is manipulated, more so by the Democrats than the Republicans, right? I think that's a fair statement to say.
Yeah.
I just told you the Republicans don't fuck with us at all, excuse my language, right?
At all.
At all, right? It's nothing in their strategy that says black people,
Not at all.
right? But the Democrats roll it out when needed, right?
Right.
When you think about that, how have they really exploited us and really not lived up to the promises that they made? And is it time for black people to look, not necessarily to the Republican Party, right? Maybe just becoming an independent thinker, having an independent perspective on things that really matter to you. You know, the pocketbook issues, things that really impact your family. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right on the head. It's becoming that thinker, not voting for a party, but voting for a person that, you know, after you did your research, and unfortunately your research only going to show you so much, vote for the one that's going to provide you, your community, the best possible service as a political party. Do we have good choices to choose from most of the time? Not really, because it's a business for them now.
Yeah.
So they're not going in it to serve the people as a whole. They're going to serve themselves, see how long they can stay and get the fringe benefits.
Yep.
And maybe once in a while do their job. Every once in a while, do my job. Closer to election time, I'm gonna start doing my job.
Right. I'm gonna make appearance.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Walk through the hood. And
Yeah. I'm not gonna do it the whole time. I'm doing the last 3 to 4 months.
Right.
Right around election time.
Because we got short attention span.
Correct.
That's all you can remember.
You guys try to, Well, I think like, I'm sorry, you finished my.
No, you good. Go ahead.
Well, I try to give my students several points. I never teach kids what to think. I try to teach them how to think.
Yes.
Elijah Muhammad said, why would you expect equality when you can't prove yourself equal? You're not taking calculus, chemistry, so-and-so. Nobody respects a buffoon, a clown, an idiot, a proud dummy.
Right.
Why would you expect respect? So as long as you're the clown, the fool, the dummy, you really have nothing to offer. You don't realize there's a clue to be had. So why should I respect you? So with black people, my point is, as long as they ask what you bring to the table, who's the next black senator in line? Our representatives politically are comedians, athletes. What LeBron, what D.L. Hughley thinks? Who gives a damn what D.L. Hughley thinks about the election? Who the hell is D.L. Hughley? You a funny man.
Right.
You tell jokes. Black kids aren't taught. Go to learn. I said, you know what law school means, jurisprudence means? You study how systems are made, systems analysis. You're an IT guy. We're so busy talking about Gucci belt and who was fighting and Real Housewives, stuff like that. Nobody takes us seriously because we want to take ourselves seriously. So a political party affiliation means nothing to them or to us because we really have nothing to offer them but a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
And until you can do something enough to make you legitimate and sway an opinion or something, you're just a person sitting back behind the table waiting for a crumb to fall and pick it up. Nobody respects that.
I agree. Let's talk about something before we transition into the next segment, right? So, again, I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion. Your political affiliation is what it is. But let's talk about gentrification and who's actually behind it.
Go down the street right there.
Who do you think's behind it? Nobody wants to take that one? I mean, you can just do the research, and it might surprise you. And let's be clear, that's not a project to help the black neighborhoods.
No.
Let's just be clear.
No.
And do your research and find out who's behind gentrification.
Let me pose a question.
Because before you do that, I can say in Richmond, do you all know who the author of gentrification is for the city of Richmond? Which ultimately led to the same model being adopted in other cities and localities across Virginia? That would be Douglas Wilder. Just a fun fact.
My question was this. Do you think that black people are tired of niggas?
Yeah, because I am.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay?
I'm on a.
My question is this. I've rode this street right here for 5, 6 years. I ran past your house, gutter falling off, 4, 5 kids with diapers out there. You got smoking weed on the front porch, music playing, fighting. It's a madhouse. It's a dump. It's a garbage pit. Okay? You ride past this, and what we put those poor people out? What are they supposed to do? Well, how do you help someone that refuses to think they need any help? So the Douglas Wild, there's a black population coming up now. 30-somethings are getting 6-figure salaries. They're turning Republican. You can't help these type of people. There's a space between a human being and a subhuman being. And once you embrace ideas like incarceration, ratchetness, pregnancy, foolishness, buffoonery, you embrace that as your whole culture. The other part is saying, Du Bois spoke on the Town 10 thing. At some point, when do you cut ties with the anchor? That's an ugly that's another part. That's an ugly conversation to have.
So let me ask you a question then. When you talked about, what did you just say? You talked about, you made a point that I wanted
Tired
to.
of it?
Yes. So I have a no ninja campaign going on.
Right, okay. I tired of ninjas. Right.
But
Douglas Wilder, who's behind gentrification, I said, you think there's a layer of black people who are saying you've held us down enough that everybody thinks we like you. Do you think black people are too forgiving? If you're willing to let somebody come into your home and destroy it, because he's black, he's my cousin, he got a jail and stay in the house right there. At what point do we tell the ratchet people, tell you what, y'all take what y'all doing and go on somewhere with it? So when they kicked out of their house, do you still lobby for them? Would you want them to come in your neighborhood? You worked hard all your life, got a couple degrees, built a nice crib for your family. Do you want
We live in the same neighborhood. No.
right.
I just want to ask you a question. No.
Right. Yeah.
we would be out there with our fellow colonizers. Boy,
Republican.
no,
But
absolutely.
we fail to realize sometimes that whatever city you're in, city's number one thing to do is make money.
Money.
No question
Generate-
about it.
yeah.
It's not to
No question about it.
support the ratchetness, not support the hood, make money. And the reason it's spreading and they're taking over is to make money.
Yeah.
And you go back to you. If you're ignorant, you're buffoonery, you don't bring nothing to the table, why am I going to leave you
You
here?
ain't paying them taxes. They need them taxes.
You beat me to the point.
They
You're
got a
not a
place for 'em.
taxpayer.
They got a place for 'em. There's a
got
place
a
for 'em.
I'm going to push you out
Yeah.
and let you complain on your way out. Because you don't bring anything to the table.
You
For the
take
city.
from the table.
Right.
Yeah.
The city wants to make money so we can grow. And you're not paying no taxes, but our taxpayers' money is going to you.
Right. All right. So now that we laid out the internal and external issues, what's next, right? Because we just can't complain. It won't solve the problem. So let's talk about the solutions. What do we need? Here are some real actionable steps that we can take as a community to break the norms or break the cycle. One thing that we talked about that needs to happen, right? We need to rebuild the black family. Not only inside from a household perspective, but from a community perspective. See, there's no more community raising of the kids anymore. When I was young, everybody on my block knew everybody, right? If I got out of pocket, if I did something, I might have got smacked 4 times before I made it home to get an ass whipping by my mom.
And like it, yeah.
And I can't say it so-and-so. She said, I already know they called me. Oh, I saw him down the street. You know what I mean?
Yes.
How do we do that? How do we transform and rebuild or establish values back in our community?
The first thing, everything you say is correct. But the first thing is going to change that mindset. We got to start changing our thinking, educate ourselves, because you can't change nothing if your mind is still thinking this is the way it should be. I got to get you educated, understand what education means to you. Because that platinum chain, whatever you got on, when you start making those albums, or whatever it is, you ain't got no education. The man with education will rob it.
No, you can be at the pawn shop.
Right. So,
Part of it.
so the first step is just changing our mindset and understanding what is important and what is the value to life.
So I like that. prioritizing marriage, fatherhood, and financial literacy.
Well, things like this, man. Like the brother was saying, we've got away from duty. Your duty as a parent is not to dress better, be your kid's friend, understand them. There's a difference in characteristics and symptoms. Most often, like, he ADHD, give him a present, give him so. My kid, his desk is unorganized. He can't stop talking. All 6-year-old boys are like that.
Right.
That's a characteristic.
Yeah.
We let them tell us what a symptom is and give our kids these medications and raise our kids like they raised theirs. And like I saw my kids, I said, this school is 50-something black. How many of y'all parents come raise hell about how bad it is here?
Yeah.
And the teacher say some bad, you touch my kids' clothes, so and so and so. And once again, I always tell them, fix your own house first. Your child is 2 or 3 years old and can't count. Okay, there's a such thing as dumb, and there's such thing as ignorant. Ignore means you see right, you refuse to see it.
Yeah.
So when I taught parent classes, a lot of the parents just don't know what they think a child's going to arrive to kindergarten. The teacher will, now you take it. You know, and so I think the first step for us, finance literacy stuff, is you learning how to think. What do you do with information? How do you use your brain? Education will take you one step to the next. So I think that's the first part of it.
I see it like this real quick. I think things are changing. I think it's a generation out there that is just lost.
Lack of
It's-
mentorship.
it's nothing. I mean, it's even a piece of them that's nothing we can say or do. But I think this younger generation coming up now, these kids, they're smart.
Yeah.
They're getting at a young age. So there is hope, but there's that gap in between that we're trying to help, and that we're trying to open arm and give love to. But you can't unless they want to receive it,
Well, kids are smart though, right?
But they want to be smart. Put it this way, you have nuclear power controlled by infantile logic.
Yeah.
You program a cell phone at 2 or 3 years old, they come, how great Thomas Jefferson. I said, y'all think school sucks? Yeah, I agree with you. Give them something they want to talk about and research, they go all the way with
But
it.
that's my point,
They
right?
do that.
I think for us, our generation, and we're different ages here, right? I think one of the benefits that I enjoyed growing up, I'm an 80s baby, but I always had people older men I could go and talk to, right? If it was my uncle, my father wasn't there, but my uncles was there. If it wasn't my uncles, then it was guys around the neighborhood, like even junkies. Like I had this crackhead, right? True story. He was a All-American basketball player. Went to Seton Hall, got on drugs real bad, came back to the hood, messed up on it, couldn't shake it. But what he would do is he'll be out in the courtyard. That's a basketball court for those who may not know what I'm talking about. He'll be out in the courtyard, and every time we get out there, be doing drills, having drills with us, showing us use our left hand, right hand. And my man would be out there with dress shoes on, dropping 30 on guys. No lie, dropping 30. Easy. Dress pants, jeans, sometimes tight dress pants. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We put all that aside because when he spoke, we listened. We knew that, he could have probably went to the league. But it was that mentorship, and people were like, how could he mentor y'all? He didn't even know where his next meal was.
That's what it is.
It didn't matter. He came out there every day to give us a message. Hey, leave that shit alone. Y'all look like me. You know what I'm saying? He was straight. And we don't do that as older men now. There's a little skit on YouTube that somebody sent me. And I think I may have shared it with you. It's a comedian, right? He's on the stage, and he's like, I'm tired of the beef between old niggas and young niggas, right? And I said, okay, I'm listening to him, right? He said, man, all the old niggas, they just weird. He said, when I went home for Thanksgiving, and my uncle just saw me, he spit out his stuffing. He was like, oh, y'all young niggas gay. He said, why y'all so fucking gay? Right? And he was like, I didn't even do anything. I just had on pink socks. I was here with my girlfriend. And It just made me, am I one of them old niggas? And I am. Because I think all these young boys gay.
They gay as hell, yeah.
Like you and your ladies shouldn't be sharing skinny jeans together. You got them on Thursday, they got them on Friday. What the hell they do that at, right? So we need to have patience with them,
You gotta have
right?
patience, but you said something. And I pick up on keywords. More willing to listen.
Yeah.
Kids today, they're not willing to, not all of them. The majority of them not willing to listen. They, no matter where the wisdom comes from, you gotta listen. Their thing is when you're talking to them, their favorite word is, I know, I
Already,
know that. They don't listen. They know everything.
If you didn't do it, how can you tell anybody?
Yeah, they know everything, so if you can't listen, you're not gonna get any wisdom, because you know everything.
Here's the thing too. We have to accept the fact that because we are so messed up, we're the elders.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
We're the elders. Our age is the elders to this generation. Because, you know, my father, he's 80-something years old. His wisdom can only be imparted to me. Because the younger generation, you know, they'll brush them off.
It's too far. It's too far of a
Yeah,
gap.
right,
Yeah.
right. So we're the elders. You know? So we have to do that. That is, it's kind of on our shoulders now to, you know, to bring them up. You know, that's one thing. That's one thing with here, Cool Beans. That's what we're trying to be, that community hub.
So that's a perfect segue to close us out. Look, it's been real. I appreciate each of you.
Thank you
You
for
brought a
having
lot
us.
of insight, a lot of good discussions, and we're definitely going to do this again. At the end of the day, nobody wins when the family feuds, right? And that's exactly why we need to stop feuding and start uniting. It won't be easy, but if we do it together, we can do it, right? That's it for today's episode. It's been a lovely conversation. If it resonated with you, please like, share it, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the dialogue going. What your thoughts are, drop a comment, hit the subscribe button, and talk to us. We'll be back again. So until next time, remember, stay sturdy, choose wisely, keep building, and we'll catch you in traffic. Thank you.